they sent out a letter saying that this product may or may not be safe. So we were stuck with $30 million of inventory that we had to destroy overnight.
Four Loko was one of the first brands to ever go viral. With its dizzying mix of alcohol and caffeine, it skyrocketed to success in the 2000s and became an iconic American beverage brand overnight. The brand understood internet culture before the internet was even mainstream. But that virality came with a cost. The company suffered government crackdowns, a media moral panic, they changed the formula of their drink, and somehow emerged from it all more relevant than ever. Today, I'm joined by Jaisen Freeman, co-founder and CEO of Four Loko, to talk about how his scrappy college drink startup went from being nearly banned to one of the top-selling beverages in the country, and how the brand has managed to leverage online controversy and transform it into cultural currency. Jaisen, welcome to Power User.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Okay, so like many millennials, I've had a decent amount of Four Loko in my day. And I think the first time I tried it was back in the 2000s in college. When did the company start and how did you come up with Four Loko?
Well, we started in college. There was three of us. We were friends. We went to The Ohio State University. You have to say they teach us. It's one of the only classes that is good at Ohio State. And we had an idea to make a Red Bull and vodka pre-canned product. And this was about 2006, 2007 is when we started. We were three young budding entrepreneurs that really thought we knew something, but we didn't really know anything. And we set off to take the world by storm.
How did you come up with the name Four Loko?
So there's 4 ingredients and it was a crazy blend of flavors. We wanted the can to be really bright and vibrant. So we came up with a camo pattern, which is still kind of our iconic brand today. But again, it was just 3 of us sitting around like a kitchen table and being like, this is what we're going to do.
What were those 4 ingredients?
It was caffeine, taurine, guarana, and wormwood was the original 4 ingredients. Yes, we obviously took caffeine out many years ago.
Okay, so let's get back into the late aughts beginnings of Four Loko. So you started it at college. You guys are getting this beverage brand off the ground. How did you market it and get the word out? I mean, there was no influencer marketing back then.
We didn't have big advertising budgets. We were obviously young college guys that, just starting out. And you got to remember the time period of this. Around 2007, 2008, social media was just emerging. Because we were college students, we had access to Facebook. And so we did a lot of advertising on Facebook, showing the brand, showing to our friends. And we haven't been able to confirm this. We're still trying to, but we believe we were, if not the first, one of the first brands actually promoted on Facebook. And so we were marketing online, marketing to our friends, and we're basically marketing to ourselves.
I completely believe that because Facebook didn't even have brand pages, I don't even think, until 2009. And that was official brand. So if you're doing that in 2008, you were definitely early. Why do you think it caught on so fast?
Everything is timing, right? Especially for brands. And I think we just hit the right time of being able to be a small brand and be able to actually talk to the masses, right? YouTube is just emerging. Facebook, obviously, Instagram wasn't really there yet, but we were able to talk to everybody very quickly. And also we were marketing to ourselves. A lot of brands at the time, it was older people trying to market to a younger generation. And we were literally marketing to ourselves and our friends, which made, the brand have more appeal and be more hip and cool.
Tell me how you grew the company. You guys are all at Ohio State, starting this beverage brand, cooking it up. Did you guys graduate and get an office? How did you go about producing this product?
We didn't actually have an office till about 2012 or 13. We had a little P.O. box at a UPS store in Chicago, Illinois, and everyone thought that was our office, but it was just a little mailbox about this big that people could send our mail. This is emergent of cloud technology. So if you called our 1-800 number, it just kind of rang to our phone. So we could kind of appear that we were this big company when it was just really 3 guys trying to, figure this out day to day. And then I think from a growing perspective, we really didn't know. Our original business plan was if we could get to $5 million in revenue, we could retire. We obviously surpassed that greatly, but, we got a small SBA loan. My partner, Jeff, his parents refinanced their house. My parents borrowed against their 401k, and we really had no choice but to be successful. So,
oh my God, your parents believe in you.
Right.
I don't even know what my mom would say if I came to her with a business idea in college. Okay, so tell me how it became this cultural phenomenon, because I feel when you explain it, it's okay, you guys had this idea for this, sort of energy drink, but it was such a phenomenon. And I feel it just became everywhere in culture. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, listen, I think a little bit is timing, luck, and a little bit is by design. When we really started to really look at what the brand was, what we wanted it to be, And we wanted to just be unapologetically like American is what our thought was. We didn't want it to pretend it was something that it wasn't. And I think for us, we really wanted the consumers to create the brand. And a lot of brands will try to have these brand standards and all these things and tell people how it should look. And we were like, okay, let's go out and look on Facebook, on YouTube, and see how are people using the brand? How are they talking about it? And let's take that and make that the brand and how we communicate and really communicate with the consumer one-on-one. You know, there was one moment where this rap group in Cleveland, Ohio called the G-Wop Gang, they created a rap song called Loco for That Loco. And it became like this, one of the first like viral hits on YouTube. And it still to this day is on YouTube. It has millions and millions of views. And again, we didn't know these guys. They just liked what we were doing, liked the brand. So we hit them up like, hey, how do we support you? You know, what can we do to continue to collab? And that's always kind of been our ethos. Even today, when we work with creators or even entertainers, they're like, what do you want us to do? And we're like, we want you to be you. Let us fit into what you are doing as opposed to us telling you, okay, this is how you should look and this is how you should act. We really want people to be themselves and then figure out how our brand fits into that.
Four Loko was one of the first like viral brands. I mean, when we think about like the millennial internet, right? Like it was all over. And this was before Instagram even. Can you tell me more about some of those moments around this era?
Again, it was just us every day. Like, how are we in the right place? How are we at the right parties? How are we doing the right things? As opposed to at the time, you got to remember, if you think about the time period, again, the shift was really happening from like television advertising and radio and print, right? And so those were what the big companies were doing. And obviously we didn't have the budgets for those. So also we were really doing hand-to-hand combat, whether in store or at parties or at events. And listen, things just started to happen there. I can't really tell you how it happened. It's like T-Pain all of a sudden had this big chain of 2 Four Loko cans, right? And we're just like, okay, we're doing something well. I don't know what it is, but let's continue down this strategy to try to be culturally relevant versus just like, here's our can and here's our ad and here's the vision, right? It's really like, how do we ingrain ourselves in culture? And I think for us, it's like being at the right events, at the right places, at the right parties, and then obviously being at the right timing of social media booming without the algorithm, without you having to really, really try to get to the consumer. We were right there front and center.
Run me through some of like the big cultural moments that you guys were part of in that era.
I mean, Saturday Night Live did like a 3-minute skit on Four Loko, unsolicited, that we didn't even know, right? It was showing up on Bill Maher. It was showing up at night shows. It shows up on The Simpsons. It shows up on all the, the cartoons and the TV shows as kind of a funny joke. It still happens today. And so for us, it's a blessing and curse because we're not really controlling that. But as things get bigger, then, other companies and regulars start to say, okay, what are they doing? Are they doing something bad? Are they doing something illegal? Which we weren't. We were doing everything above board. But I think for us, it was how do we be at the right places with the right people in hand? And it's just making sure that we're in every, relevant Lower East Side party, making sure Loco's there, it's front and center. People see it like, oh, okay, I know what that is. And that's something that I really want to be a part of my night. We did a skit with the influencer, the Fat Jewish. And I don't know if you know who the Fat Jewish is. He was very cultural relevant at this time. And his idea was, let's give away a whole bunch of money. And we're like, okay, what do you want to do? We rented a little space in Chinatown, and he sent out a post, first person to bring me a Loco wins $10,000. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know who would show up. I think it was a minute and 37 seconds later, this woman showed up in this room with him with a Four Loko in her hand. And basically there was 2 strings attached to the ceiling. And one string was a whole bunch of like turkey and cold cuts, and the other string was $10,000, and she had to pick one, and she obviously picked the right one, and she was showered with $10,000. The brand allows us to kind of do things that normal brands wouldn't do, and I think consumers catch on to that and start to see that, oh, this is authentic. It's kind of weird, but I kind of like it. But it's not doing what the traditional brands are doing. And that's what our ethos has always been for Four Loko.
I think like in this era, as you mentioned, it became so relevant, so all over the place, and so much like media attention around it that you guys were like on everyone's radar. I am thinking of this quote from Esquire around this time that said, Four Loko is arguably the most insane beverage to hit the market since there was actually cocaine in Coca-Cola. And I feel like it was also like very early in terms of moral panics, like online, where nowadays we see like a new moral panic about everything where parents are freaking out. But this was like the internet was young. And I remember even I think like my parents, definitely friends' parents would be like, be careful. Oh, you can't have that. Or, it was sort of seen as this like controversial thing. And I think the name fed into that. So that got you guys on the radar of regulators. Tell me what happened there.
Back to your point, I think the notoriety and the increase in awareness and being on social media was a blessing. But then we started to get on everyone's radar. We weren't doing anything different. There was products that were very similar that were on the market. There was products that were adjacent. The ingredients, you have to understand, to get an alcoholic product available for sale, there's many, many levels of approval, right? There's like federal approval, state approval. There's many agencies. So the fact that it was illegal or we were doing something wrong was kind of comical because of the steps that we had to get through to get the product there. But I think what happened, and back to your point about the hysteria around the brand, we met with congressmen and authorities, and I won't name this person, but a little bit older gentleman. And I said, hey, there's no really difference in what we're doing versus a Red Bull vodka or a Kahlua and coffee. And his response to me was, I don't see college kids shotgunning Kahlua and coffee on YouTube. So it really became like, okay, that's a distinction, right? Of how people decide to use it versus like, this is what the actual product was. And we kind of were like the first like cancel culture brand that became this mass hysteria. And it was really hard to kind of sit there and take that because we felt like, hey, we're like these middle-class kids that came up, built this from nothing, bootstrapped the American dream. And we thought everyone would be happy for us. And I think people are happy for you as long as you don't start taking away from their stuff. And that's what we learned. That's what we learned very quickly.
I remember this era because, again, we were still like drinking this at parties and stuff. And I feel like there was a lot of anger. Like, I mean, I remember people doing like petitions of like save Four Loko. And like, can you talk about the kind of like the fan response and the consumer response?
Yeah, listen, most of the fan response and consumer response was very positive, right? Like even we were going through the governmental issues and we took the caffeine out. There was a vigil in Union Square. Eddie Wang, who, right fresh off the boat, he has a restaurant in the Lower East Side and he decided to serve Four Loko. And the authorities came in like prohibition style and like shut the place down, right? I think he lost his liquor license for like 5 years because of it. So these all things that were mass hysteria over something that, was not that justified for mass hysteria was for us, especially, young people at the time, just like, what is going on? Why are we creating so much strife around all this? But, I think another story, which we talked about our office at the P.O. box, it was a UPS store and we get our mail there. And I remember the guy there calling me, he said, hey, there's some people here protesting out front against Four Loko. And so protesters came to the UPS store because they thought it was our office with signs saying like, this is terrible, it's killing kids, right? And so you're just sitting there and you're like, what is going on? You just figure it out day to day and just keep pushing forward. But the consumer was always there. We always knew we had the consumer because we were doing things authentically. And again, it's not like we're some transformational brand, but we were just real. And I think people saw that for the first time as opposed to trying to press a message on them. It's just like, hey, this is fun in a can. Yeah. and we're going to be unapologetically that.
So you guys removed the caffeine. I'm wondering kind of like how that affected your products. I know after that, the brand had become, like you said, it was this seen as this like toxic thing by so many like adults or like older people and like parents. And like, I feel like it was really hard to like get people, I imagine it was hard to get in bars. How did you evolve and pivot in that era?
We made the decision to remove caffeine. The government, they wanted us to prove to them that caffeine and alcohol mixed together was safe. And what we realized is we could fight the government, but we would eventually lose. So we thought, hey, we'll take the caffeine out, we'll make some new product, and we'll move upon our merry way. Well, that's not really what happened. The FDA, who does not regulate alcohol, they regulate food, they sent out a letter saying that this product may or may not be safe. And so, we have our big distributors and the places that sell, they're like, can we sell this stuff? And we're like, we think you can, but we don't know. So we were stuck with $30 million of inventory that we had to destroy overnight. And we didn't have $30 million. We had just started making money. So we worked out a deal with our distributors because we knew the consumer was there. Our bank then kicked us out and said, we don't bank with people like you. So we didn't have a place to like collect deposits or even pay people. So we found a bank in Chicago that, has been a great partner with us for a very long time. And then we had over 90 lawsuits filed against us. Like, hey, I slip and fell because of Four Loko. We even had a woman who was in jail for drunk driving and killed somebody, saying after the fact that she had been drinking Four Loko, which there was no proof of. So she was suing us from jail. We had to pay $20 million of lawsuits on top of not having a line of credit or any investment. but the consumer was kind of always there. And so we kind of just had to like get through this period of time where we could just, filter through. We stayed low. We didn't do many interviews because we weren't going to really get a good shot. Everyone thought we were kind of the devil or doing illegal things. And then we started another brand in 2013, 2014 called Not Your Father's Root Beer, which was an alcoholic root beer. And it shot up very quickly. We had some great partnerships. And then Pabst Brewing Company wanted to purchase the brand. And that kind of helped us get out of all of our financial troubles and mess and allowed us to kind of refocus and move the business forward, which we've been doing for kind of the last 10 years, innovating new partnerships and new brands as well.
Well, you guys, especially in the mid 2010s, I feel like we're really early influencer marketers. Like you've always leveraged the internet and like been able to wield the internet. And I feel like that's maybe what helped get you through that time too. Cause like those first 5 years of the 2010s, I feel like it was rough. Can you tell me what brands you went on to launch next? Cause I think you did like the rosé or, tell me about all that.
Yeah, we had a great partnership with Josh Ostrowski, also known as the Fat Jewish. Him and his partners had this great idea to start a canned wine called Babe. And then another rosé called White Girl Rosé on top of that was very successful. And they wanted to be kind of like, and it kind of was the first kind of internet social influencer alcohol brand. Obviously there's so many of them now, but he was really the pioneer of that. And, we kind of worked the back end. He worked and his partners worked the marketing. It was very successful and sold to Anheuser-Busch a couple of years later, which was great. We've had some failures as well, which I think can't always talk about the highs, but we had some good ideas. There's a golfer called John Daly. We did a John Daly cocktails with him. It went pretty well. It just didn't have the success of some of the other brands. As far as influencer marketing or creators, we're always open to any of these people that make sense, that are authentic, that are really doing things authentic. And I think even when Josh with the Fat Jewish went through some issues himself, we were like, hey, we're here, we're supportive. How do we work together? And I think that's always kind of been our ethos, is like, we kind of feel for people that get the raw end of the cancel stick, as long as it's not, something really crazy. We're always very supportive of that because we know that, it can be misunderstanding sometimes.
You still struggled even after taking the caffeine out, right?
I mean, listen, we still to this day has happened, but obviously right after one of the big moments where we saw kind of society in itself come after us, is there was a couple big after parties for Lollapalooza, which, obviously there's Coachella and these other events that have big after parties. So we had an idea to have Lollapalooza talent at an after party for free for our consumers. And so we found this warehouse on the west side of Chicago. We had Lil Uzi Vert. We had, Major Lazer. We had a whole bunch of great artists that were going to come and play. We didn't know if 100 people would show up or 1,000. About 2,500 people showed up at 5 o'clock for a 7:30 doors opening. So we were at capacity really quick. And as we let people in, it was, free show, free Four Loko. We have food and events and activations. And the police chief came down and basically said, I wasn't aware of this event, and I heard that Chief Keef was playing here. Now, Chicago and Chief Keef, you don't know, there's very bad blood. There's a lot of negativity around him, which wasn't true. He was just saying that. And it wasn't because of that. It was because it was us and that we were doing a free show. So they literally shut us down. And so people were showing up, like artists, and people were coming to our event, and there's cop cars all around and sirens. So it kind of helped the brand a little bit from a street credibility, but it kind of sucked because we had put so much into this party and it got shut down basically on false pretenses when Red Bull was having a party, half a mile away.
I mean, you mentioned Lil Uzi Vert. I feel like you guys also worked with a lot of music artists really early, right? I mean, can you talk about that?
I mean, music has always been a big thing of us. We started Four Loko Records. We didn't do much around it, but we always knew that internet, music, alcohol, they're just intertwined. And how do we do well with those? Obviously, we talked about T-Pain, Lil Uzi Vert, Major Lazer. I
think you guys worked with Riff Raff.
Riff Raff's an interesting one. We wanted to change the narrative, right? So I think this might have been around the same time, about 2014, 15. Everything had gone social media. Television, it was like nobody was doing it. And so we had this idea because Vice had just started their television channel and they had some ad space. So we're like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we were like, we're so anti doing commercials, we actually did a commercial. And so we did a commercial with Riff Raff that aired only on Vice, which was very fun. And he's a walking Four Loko. Just everything about him is a walking Four Loko. So it was a perfect partnership. It got a little fanfare, but it was fun and it's just something that we like to try a little different.
Okay, so you guys are like doing pretty well. It seems like you sold off multiple alcohol brands and then COVID hit. And I feel like 2020 must have been tough because I mean, I just know people in the beverage space, consumer product space had a really hard time. How did you navigate that?
In the beginning stage, it was very tough because we didn't know what was going to happen, right? Obviously, bars and restaurants shut down. Almost all of our sales are done in convenience stores, liquor stores, and package stores. So when they said that these are essential services, it kind of saved our business. A lot of brands are highly, reliant on bars and restaurants. We are not. But, it was hard because, we have a lot of employees that this was their livelihood. We didn't, get rid of any employees. We kept everybody on at full salary. What we did is just changed our sales tactics. We went from, people making sales calls to calling people on the phone or sending mailers or sending emails until it was, safe for people to go out. Our business actually expanded during COVID because of how our products consumed. And we weren't not really relying on restaurant and bars, really just liquor stores and convenience stores and package stores. And so it brought a lot of people to our category that may have not have drank us before.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me. As a high-profile journalist dealing with stalking, death threats, harassment, and more, I know how crucial it is to protect your privacy online. Unfortunately, no matter how careful you are, data brokers will collect and sell your personal information to anyone willing to pay for it. This includes your name, address, phone number, and more. When someone buys your data through a broker, they don't just see you. They see your spouse, your parents, your loved ones, anyone you're connected to. Removing this information off the internet helps keep you safe from things like identity theft and stalking. But how do you remove your information from the web when there are thousands of data brokers? Delete Me is a subscription service that will automatically remove your personal information being sold online. It's been an absolute game changer for me as somebody that values privacy. Delete Me scours the internet for your information and handles takedown requests. They provide regular privacy reports so you can see how much data they found on you, where it was found, and where it was removed. You can even make custom removal requests. Their family plans are especially crucial because when you're targeted, your loved ones usually are too. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/Taylor20 and use promo code Taylor20 at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Taylor20 and use code Taylor20 at checkout. Don't wait until it's too late to safeguard your privacy. Make sure your data and your families stays protected. I feel like also Four Loko is now being embraced by Gen Z. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you, as like a brand that was so associated with millennials, like also become such a favorite of Gen Z? Because I feel like it's really hard. And a lot of those brands that had so much early success around the time that you did, like they're sort of stuck in that era and they never really like evolved with youth culture. So tell me how you manage that.
I think that you're completely right. And there are two different, obviously, consumers and the way that they think. But I think what we've always been successful at is we want to make Loko like a rite of passage. It's like, this is the thing you drink before you go out, right? This is the thing that you do. And I think us, again, back to music, our big partnership with Live Nation, always being at EDC and Rolling Loud. And there's these consumers are coming in as they're becoming a legal drinking age and they're seeing us and we're really staying in that place where it's cool to drink or part of history, as opposed to where you see a lot of brands, they start to get spokespersons or people that look like the people that they want to market to. And we've really stayed away with that. Loko is just unapologetically like, this is what we are. If you want to have a good night in a can, that's what we are. And so I think not getting too specific. The best thing that happens for me, and people think I hate it, is when some older millennials are like, oh, wait, I thought that was banned. And I was like, yes, because you shouldn't see any of our marketing. If you're seeing our ads, then we're doing something very, very wrong, right? And so I think for us to stay relevant, you have to stay relevant in culture. You have to stay relevant in music, and you have to stay relevant with who are the new and interesting creators that are coming up. And I think we consistently do that well.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about how you've like navigated also just the internet now. Because when you started, like it was so much smaller and like having a viral video on YouTube was like life changing. And now it's like TikTok, there's millions of viral videos all day. So how do you approach social media now as a brand?
Yeah, listen, I think it's very important. We have a great team of people who their only job is to scour the internet day and night. We had posts that trend on Twitter without any paid media, right? Which is very rare for a brand. But I think we're constantly on top of what's happening, right? As opposed to us creating content, it's like, what's the topic of the day? Like Harambe's back now in the conversation, right? So we're going to do content around that to be relevant around that. So I think it's finding out what is the conversation online, because that is their conversation in real life as well. And how do we insert in part of that as opposed to try to being the conversation?
You guys also launched a bunch of new flavors, right?
I think a couple of years ago, what happened is every flavor we launched, our competitors would copy, right? So it's like, okay, we have a blueberry, smash, and now the next brand has the same thing. And so we step back and we're like, how do we create kind of like a platform that not only works on the can, but works in the internet and then works in real life? We started that with Four Loko Gold. There's a lot of play around gold. We had gold chains. The can is gold. And everyone's like, well, what's the flavor? And that's kind of the great part about it. You kind of get to like discover what the flavor is. And if it works for you, it doesn't. So that was like the number one innovation in our category. And then we followed up with USA, Four Loko USA, and people are like, well, what's USA? It's like, it tastes like freedom, right? So it's like playing off of that, being fun. And then we did a great partnership with Warheads Candy, where we had a Warheads flavor, which was obviously very successful. You're seeing a lot of non-alcoholic brands kind of extend into alcoholic brands, and we thought that this was a great kind of merge and play. And then our last is Four Loko Camo, which we've owned Camo for a long time. Camo, obviously, from fashion to hunting, it's just become this big thing. So we're kind of on trend, and we're like, hey, we own this. Like, why don't we really own it? Our merch has been selling out, and we've been sending stuff to people. Even our partnership with FaZe, like, they love wearing our camo kind of merch. So it's been a good kind of ride on doing these partnerships of flavors. But the hard part is we have to figure out the next one.
Well, also, I'm curious, like, how you navigate the beverage landscape today, because it seems like there's this also focus on like health and like cleanliness, or you know what I mean? Like, it's all about like, this is a natural. And when I think of Four Loko, I kind of think of like Jolly Ranchers, like in a can. Like, it doesn't seem like it's like clean drink that you would drink on the way to Pilates or something. So how have you sort of navigated that like boom in sort of like wellness, I guess? Or do you just sort of ignore that and you're like, that's not my consumer?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. It's something that we consistently talk about, right? I don't think Four Loko's never going to be all natural, low calorie, low sugar. It's just not the DNA of the brand. But what we did is we created a brand called Mamitas with Brody Jenner, which is 1 gram of sugar, 95 calories, all natural, healthy ingredients, tequila based, right? So that is our foray into that. With the Loko, I think people are more informed, but I still do think people are inclined. I mean, you go to Starbucks, people are ordering frappuccinos that are 1,000 calories, right? You go to the bar and you order a margarita, like that has a lot of sugar. It's not that different than Four Loko. So I think people do want some balance in their life, most people, and they want a little bit of that release. And not only do they get a release from Loko, I guess, in the healthy eating way, but I think the brand actually says something for people. So I think anything in moderation is important. But I think for us, the health and wellness is creating different brands to target that type of consumer.
Tell me about what your business looks like now. I mean, you guys have evolved, I think, from a PO box in Chicago. So how, where's the company operating? How many people do you have? And what does it look like today?
Our main office is in Chicago, an actual real office, which I'm at today. We have about 250, 300 employees. We have office here. We have office in Monterrey, Mexico. We have one in Ireland. What's happened through this and what happened through kind of all of the negative publicity and media is international attention started to come upon us. And we spread through Mexico, South America. Four Loko has become like the number one RTD in like a lot of these Central and South American markets. It's number one RTD in Ireland, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and now we're moving kind of south through UK, and it eventually will be the number one RTD in the United Kingdom, which we're spreading through Europe. And we just launched Australia, which is a completely different market, but very similar, obviously, with English speaking. And so we're using our same playbook in these markets, finding the real interesting creators, that are up and coming, heavy social media presence, and, really unapologetically American. We are pitching that, and people resonate with that a lot, whether it's in Asia or whether it's in South America or whether it's in Europe. we're staying to that, like, this is the American brand and people love it.
It's interesting because it's managed to be this like hyper American brand. And you're right. Like when I think of it, I think of like American culture, I guess, because it's like party culture. And like, I don't know, there's something, like you said, it's very like American, like, I don't want to say trashy, but like, it's like that.
You can
fun.
say it. You can say
it. But it's not like toxic American. Like I feel like now, especially as brands are so politicized, it's not seen that way. You know what I mean? Even though it is like hyper American at this time when like there's so much controversy over nationalism, like it's kind of avoided that. And I don't know how you've been able to do that if that's been intentional.
We're for everybody, right? I'll give you a prime example. So we made these hats, which were red hats, very red. And they said, "Make America Loco again." And I would wear this hat in the airport and I would get scowls at me, just people staring at me, not happily, right? And then they would actually read it and they would start laughing. But then they're like, wait a second. Are you for this? Or are you against this? Are you here? But it's for everybody. We're for everybody that just wants to have a good time. I mean, we're still for decency and like we do have values, but it's also like if you're a decent person, we're for everybody.
Well, you're not like an overtly political brand, right? And I think that that's been really hard actually for brands to navigate. I mean, you're talking about cancel culture. Like one of the biggest examples I can think of is like Bud Light and them doing the single wrong influencer marketing ad and like being targeted. How do you manage to not like have the internet come for you in that way and have like lawmakers getting involved and things like that?
Well, I think we want the internet come for us because it's fun for us. There were a brand, the internet should come for us. Like if we would have been Bud Light, it would have been fine. Right. And I think that's kind of the point. We're not so serious and we don't pretend to be this, Midwestern American brand. We're not. We're unapologetically American. So I think what happens is when you're not authentic and then you try to do something out of authenticity that's not authentic, that's when people can come for you. But for us, if you look at our history, we've worked with everybody, right? Again, as long as you're not like completely breaking the law or doing something against values, like we're open to it. If you said something wrong, okay, like maybe you just said something wrong that day. You know what I mean? Like I think it's more about the person. And I think me and my partner, Jeff, we meet all these creators. Like there's no one that we've done business with. We don't go through an agency to find someone based on their metrics. Like everybody that we work with, we sit down and have dinner with, and we have a conversation with them, and we want to be connected with them in that way. And so we have a pretty good filter, like, is this one of our people or is it not, right? And I think that's the difference where what happened with Bud Light, they just outsourced this thing to this agency and they had no idea what they were doing or who they were working with until the backlash came. Like, I know who we're working with, and if there's backlash, okay, we're ready for it, right? This is a good person. They made a mistake.
Well, it is rare that companies meet the creators, especially the CEOs meet the creators. Like you said, I think so many people want to leverage the internet. They just outsource it because they're like, oh, we feel like we should be doing influencer marketing. So like, we're going to just outsource that.
And that's where I think even our social media team is, I'm looking at them right now, they're like creating Harambe content right now, right? So like we do everything internal. Yes, we have outside partners that help us with ideas, but I think if you really want to be part of the conversation and part of the internet, it has to be internal and it has to be part of the culture. And I think those brands that do that are the brands that win.
Okay, so Four Loko has been on such a roller coaster of a company story, but where do you guys see the brand going next? And what do you have planned for the future?
I think let me get my crystal ball out, right? The world domination, I guess, is kind of it. No, but I think for us, it's continuing to grow the brand. It's continuing the Four Loko brand to be cemented into pop culture like we are, but it has to stay relevant and you can't just sit back on those laurels. So we are expanding. We have new partnerships coming up, new brands. We obviously did a big partnership with FaZe Clan, which is in gaming, something that we have never done before. And then international expansion. We're in about 30 countries now. We want to double that, in 5 years. So that is really understanding the intricacies of all these different countries. And then again, back to your conversation about health and wellness, we have our brand Mamitas. We have some other different brands that we're working on. And so for us, again, Jeff and I, we own this company, we run it. I have a great partner who's, my best friend, and we're having so much fun. And I think we're going to keep doing this till we're done having fun and pissing people off. And we want the internet to come for us. So if they're not coming from us, then we're not doing something well. So I think that is the ethos of Four Loko. It is is kind of like, well, fuck you. Well, okay, yeah, okay, now we're good. We're friends, right? So I think that's, what we want to continue to create a great place where people enjoy working and doing fun stuff.
Well, Jaisen, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. To get your data removed from the internet, check out joindeleteme.com and use code Taylor20 at checkout for 20% off. All right, that's it for the show. Don't forget to subscribe to my tech and online culture newsletter, usermag.co. That's usermag.co, where I cover all of this stuff and more. You can watch full episodes of Power User on my YouTube channel at Taylor Lorenz. If you like the show, give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Power User. See you then.